All right, folks, Republicans now have control of the House as well as the Senate. And so we had a conversation with Reince Priebus, chair of the Republican National Committee. We talked about various issues, including whether or not the GOP will be supporting the Voting Rights Act amendment that a Republican in the House is supporting. Here's my interview with Chairman Priebus.
Well, first of all, I think we need to pass a budget, Roland, and a lot of people don't know, because it's actually a pretty tricky law, you don't actually need the president to pass a budget. Now, eventually, in appropriations and ways and means, you do, but we can pass budget parameters through the House and the Senate. I think that'd be a great place to start, and I think it'll give a lot more confidence to consumers and to lenders and to banks and freeing up capital. I know a lot of people are worried about that, small business owners, so that's the first thing. Second, I would say you're already seeing it, that there's enough support on both sides of the aisle for the Keystone Pipeline. I think an Obamacare alternative is something that Republicans are working on now, and I think you might see that. And then some trade agreements. Look, I think what we're talking about are some base hits and first downs, just to show some core competency at the federal level, to give people some confidence that they made a good decision in putting Republicans in control.
What about infrastructure? The president has been talking for the last 3 or 4 years about passing a strong infrastructure bill, dealing with our bridges, dealing with our schools, dealing with our roads, and that for some reason hadn't got any headway. That speaks to the issue of economic development, speaks to jobs. It's amazing. I heard through the whole 2012 presidential election, jobs, jobs, jobs. Over the last year, I didn't hear jack coming out of Washington, D.C. on both sides about jobs.
Well, I think you're seeing some of that bubbling up now, Roland, and I certainly hear about it within our own caucus and meetings that we have. So, I mean, it will yet to be seen. You know, I mean, I'm certainly aware of what's happening, and I get involved in some of the discussion over legislation and direction on agenda, but, I mean, you know, generally, I'm in charge of the campaign arm, and, you know, we're doing what we have to do here to continue to be successful on the ground, the digital operation, but it works hand in glove. I mean, we obviously have to show movement and forward thinking in order to be successful on the piece that I'm most in control of. So I understand it works together, but I think you're seeing Mitch McConnell and John Boehner and Kevin McCarthy really focus in on what that achievable, simple agenda is going to look like starting in January.
Let's talk about a critical issue, and that is voting rights. You have been reaching out to African Americans and others trying to expand the Republican tent. Congressman Jim Sensenbrenner, a Republican, he is the sponsor of H.R. 3899, the Voting Rights Act, the Voting Rights Amendment Act of 2014. That is to fix, of course, what the Supreme Court ruled in the Shelby County versus Holder decision. There's not been a single Republican in the Senate who has signed on when it comes to this. Do you want to see the Republican Party assume the mantle, take the leadership of this? Because anybody who understands history knows Republicans played a critical role in the passage of the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act in 64 and 65. Should Republicans step up and pass this voting rights amendment, this act that Sensenbrenner is sponsoring in the House?
Well, I think you're going to see a lot more focus now on that and a lot of other important issues now that I think the election's over and some of this sort of tap dancing is over. That, you know, I don't, without pointing fingers again at Harry Reid, I think holding everything up in the Senate has been a mistake. But back to this issue at hand, you remember, Roland, I was the person who made sure that Jim Sensenbrenner got up at our 50th anniversary of the March on Washington and declare his support for reinstatement of the Voter Rights Act. I mean, obviously, I'm the person who put him in that position, and he has been very much a pioneer on the Voter Rights Act, and he's kind of our political hero in Wisconsin.
But so, he's in the House.
He's still the dean of Wisconsin. Right, but he's still the dean of our delegation. Yeah, he is in the House. So, I mean, obviously it's early. I hope that he gets support for what he's doing, but, you know, I'm just not involved in the day-to-day over there, but certainly you bring it up, and I would be more than happy to, to give Jim a call and see how he's doing on his proposal.
Well, right, he's in the House, but no Republicans in the Senate have signed on. And I would think if you're talking about this kind of outreach, it would be critically important now that Republicans, and look, I was calling for Republicans to sign on to this even when they were in the minority. This bill needs Republican sponsors in the United States Senate in order to make it happen.
I think you're going to see that, Roland. I mean, I don't want to put words in anyone's mouth, but I think you're going to see that, and I think that whatever frustration you're feeling now, I think you're going to see people focus in on that and many other important issues, and I think it's going to come to a head, and I think you're going to see bipartisan support on that. I commend Rand Paul for what he's talking about, but and many others. I mean, even though he's facing obviously some serious trouble in Virginia, you might remember Bob McDonnell spearheaded a lot of these things a few years ago. And I think what you're seeing, and I think what's really good for everyone to see, and I'm happy you're bringing these things up a lot, and I think it's important, is that there's a lot of Republicans out there talking about sentencing reform. Now, without getting too far in the weeds, Roland, I would say that I think it's a great thing that you have Republicans leading the way across the country in sentencing reforms. But these things started with Republicans years ago. And I think what we're seeing about all of these issues, whether it be the Voter Rights Act, whether it be sentencing reform, whether it be freeing up capital to local black business owners across the country, it works a lot better when there's both Republicans and Democrats on the same page. And I think what's important for everyone to see out there is that Republicans are there fighting every single day for a lot of these issues. It doesn't mean that everyone's on the same page, but it is important to have key Republicans working on these things, and I'm proud as chairman of the Republican National Committee that Republicans are helping lead the way on those issues.
Got a couple of more minutes here. You talked about the issue of entrepreneurs. There are 1.9 million black-owned businesses in this country. Black women run 1.1 million of those businesses. What are you proposing, or what do you want to see Republicans do to drive the issue of entrepreneurship when it comes to small businesses, specifically for African Americans? The unemployment rate is double that for African Americans to the national average, and so clearly these businesses play a vital role. They've been hurt, obviously, with this economy in the past 6-7 years, since 2007, 2008. And so what is what are Republicans proposing to really help small business owners?
Well, for one thing, I think that the talk of enterprise zones is important to continue talking about. I think that tax incremental financing districts within communities is very important, so you can buy down the tax so that small businesses can work at a lower rate or tax-free in those particular areas, freeing up capital through SBA loans, something that the president promised he would deliver to black business owners, and he didn't deliver anything in that regard to black business owners. Now, and one other thing that gets to the heart of this, Roland, and it's a little different than what you're asking. I think we, as a party, we try to champion this, but I think as a nation, we need to make sure that we wake up to school choice, to private vouchers, to virtual schools, to homeschooling, and that we remind voters every single day that we're the party that believes in the school choice and charters and virtual schools, because getting that right first at the elementary school level and middle school and high school, that will then flourish into the community, and it'll make, obviously, I think, a whole lot better futures in communities. And so school choice, freeing up these parents to send their son or daughter to whatever school they want to, or teach them at home, and then freeing up that capital and following through on your promises so that black business owners, Hispanic business owners in the communities can actually go get a loan to help them start their American dream.